please, let's give a warm Dorseyville welcome to Mr. Rocky Bleier.
Good morning, everybody. It's my pleasure to be able to be here and share this morning with you. So I just want to let you know that we can take as much time as we want. We'll have a question and answer afterwards. So if we go to noon, you won't have to go to class. Oh, I'm sorry. We didn't agree on that. Anyway, it's my pleasure to be able to be here. I'm going to embarrass her. My granddaughter is where's she sitting? Oh, that's right. Hello, thank you for allowing this to happen. So anyway, just to put things in perspective, as I said to you, my granddaughter. So I'm old. Older than you think, but I'm old. And it gives me a different perspective on things that we've learned, stories that we tell, because we all have a story of one nature or another. And yours is just starting where you are at this moment in time. And the experiences that you will have and share, but more importantly, the people ultimately that will touch your life and in some sense, maybe change your life. Whether it be a teacher, a mentor, a parent, we have influencers in our life. And all of a sudden you go in one direction or another. And that's what I guess I would like to talk about. Now, as you well know, most of my life has been involved in the world of football on one level or another. And even though it's been my life and my passion and my focus, I've also come to realize that I do share this world with some people who could care less about what's happening in the world of football. And some of those people are sitting right out here this morning, okay? Now, whether or not you like the game of football, you at least have to admit yourself it's become part of the fabric of our lives. I mean, think about it. How many Steeler fans out there? See? High school, college. It's a game that is now on television, 24 hours a day. It's in our local papers, radio talk shows. It becomes the topic of conversation within our homes, here at school. Some of us have played the game. Friends have played the game. Older people or kids have played the game. And football is much like life, if I can make that analogy. And why is that? Well, think about it. There's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end. There's birth, there's life, there's death. And depending on how your team has performed during that period of time, there may be a mourning period, and then there's a renewal. And repeat that process week after week and thus season after season, and it creates one word, football does, much like life. And that one word is hope. God, I hope they can win this coming week. I hope they can win the division. I hope they get into the playoffs. I hope the Steelers can get to the Super Bowl. And even if, let's say, our beloved Steelers don't get to the Super Bowl, we hope the team we like the least beats the team we hate the most. And I was very fortunate to be able to play with that team through those years that today they now allow me to wear those 4 Super Bowl rings, from Super Bowls 9 and Super Bowls 10, Super Bowls 13, if you may remember. No, you don't remember. Super Bowls 14. Do you know how many Steeler fans it takes to change a light bulb? 5. 1 to change a light bulb, the other 4 to talk about how great the 70s were. Now, I know that the 70s are only in history books for most of you, and for your parents who were your age at that time, and then your grandparents. But from 74, 75, 5, 78, and 79, one against the Minnesota Vikings, 2 against the Dallas Cowboys, and the 4th against the LA Rams. But they become symbols within our lives. Constant reminders that getting to the top and becoming the best, or becoming number one, or ultimately winning the Super Bowl just doesn't happen. But yet it takes all those ingredients that we've come to learn. It takes hard work, dedication, takes a commitment, takes a passion, takes people and leadership and a vision and a belief system all shoved into a capsule that today, no matter what we may do, we love to call a team. And throughout our lives, we've heard of many definitions of the word team. How about that acronym TEAM? Together, everyone achieves more. Teachers, how many times have we heard that? How many times have we used that? Well, we understand that concept. Probably the best definition I heard came from our illustrious head coach, Chuck Noll, who defined a team simply as this: a group of individuals coming together for a common purpose and a common goal. And along the way, we have our own responsibility. Game of football as an example. Common purpose, play the game. Common goal, to win. Responsibilities, head coach, coaching staff. Find the right players, put them in the right position, train them, and then ultimately arm them with the best offense and defensive game plans. Players' responsibility, take the game plans, whether you like them or not, and execute them to the best of your ability. So that when you walk in off that field into the locker room and you look at yourself in the mirror, you can honestly say, I did everything I could according to this plan. Because each and every one of you says that all the parts will come together as a whole, and that whole truly will be a victory. Individuals coming together for common purpose, common goals. So successful teams, like successful organizations, whatever it may be, really are made up of 2 parts. The commitment of the individuals to their own responsibilities and to that of the organization, and thus the commitment of the organization, the school, in support of the individuals to achieve their goals. 2 parts held together by a common glue called commitment and trust. Without that glue, obviously those 2 sides will fall apart. Without that glue, there will be no continuity. So if football is a microcosm of our society, think about it then. What happens in the world of football happens in our lives. And what we like or don't like that is happening on that playing field is maybe what we like or don't like that is happening in our own existence. We see the game of football, as I think about it, changed when free agency came into the marketplace, trying to get more out of people in a shorter period of time. And even though the model changed, those ingredients that allow teams to succeed still remain in vogue. So if you go back and take a look, and I'm going back, if you go back and take a look at successful teams in the NFL over the decades of period of time, you're going to find a commonality. I'm going to take you back when your grandparents were kids. The Green Bay Packers of the 60s, and the Steelers of the 70s, and the 49ers of the 80s, and the Cowboys of the 90s, and the Pats and the Bills of 2000, and the Patriots of 2010, maybe Kansas City now of these last 4 years. If you look at those organizations, you're going to find a commonality. And what is that? At the helm, in each and every one of those cases, definable head coaches. So leadership becomes very important. 2, talent. You can't win if you don't have the talent or the players to do so. Thirdly, creating a vision of what you want to become, and that is to be the best within that competition. And then secondly, getting everybody to buy into that vision. Now, you have to understand that concept just did not dawn on me. It's something that I had to learn, like all of us. And for me, it was on-the-job training. And I learned it by playing with this team in Pittsburgh. For to understand success, we must what? Also understand our past and our culture. So in this case, historically, I have to take you back to 1933, where Mr. Arthur J. Rooney spent $2,500 and he bought a franchise in the National Football League. And he moved a Northside Sandlot football team into the fledgling NFL. For the next 40 years, it was a team destined to lose. Why? Because it had no long-term vision. It operated on short-term gains, week to week, month to month, year to year. Bring a marquee player every now and then just to be able to sell some tickets. It was always the same old Steelers. Wait till next year. Hopefully, something will change. Actually, if you think about it, it was a team that took on the aura of its culture. Because if you think about Western Pennsylvania, going back all those many years, you got to think about the coal mines and the steel mills and the barges working up and down the rivers, working 10, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, put a roof over the head and a meal on the plate. It was like the Steelers, just a tough, hard-nosed, blue-collar team. You come in and you would play the Steelers, let me tell you this, they would beat the crap out of you. Never win. No, that was not part of the formula, but that's okay. But then it changed when they went outside of the organization and brought in a guy by the name of Chuck Noll. He came in from a very successful organization with the Baltimore Colts. Had just gone to the Super Bowl. He played 7 years with the Cleveland Browns during championship years. So what he brought was a will to win. What he had was a Pygmalion impact, helping his players reach their full potential. In short, it is called leadership. Now, as we all know, there are hundreds of books written on that topic of leadership. So for the purpose of this little discussion I'm having with you, my definition of leadership is the ability to influence. Think about it. By word, thought, deed, or action, we make an impact every day in both a positive and or negative connotation. You impact me, I don't even have to deal with you. You impact me how? By your attitude, by your attention, by what you say, how you treat others. Now, leadership was later redefined for me when I was in the service. A grizzly old drill sergeant who loved to give little one-on-one chats whenever he had the opportunity to do so. And one day before I could escape his presence, he had me spun around, pinned me against the wall with a big burly finger stuck in my chest, and he said, "Bleier, I'm going to tell you this, and I'm only going to tell you this once. When put in charge, whether it be that worthless life of yours, or this detail I'm going to send you on right after I get done talking to you, or God forbid you ever find yourself in a position to lead a squad, platoon, or company, but when put in charge, by God, take charge. And when you're in charge, have the courage to do what is right. Not what somebody else thinks is right. Not necessarily what a superior thinks is right, but what you think is right. Right for the situation, right for the detail, more importantly, what's right for the men. Now, the optimum word in that definition, as I thought about it all these many years, is that one simple word called courage. And much like leadership, it has multiple definitions. So for the purpose of this little discussion, leadership is really simply the ability to influence. And think about that. By word, thought, deed, or action, we make an impact every day in both a positive and negative connotation. As I said, you impact me and I don't have to deal with you. And so leadership becomes very important because ultimately we need to have the courage to become leaders. And courage, the best definition I could come up with of courage is to define what courage is not. Courage is not running away from our responsibilities or passing it off onto someone else. That is not a courageous act. Nor is courage necessarily being a fool, running headstrong into a situation, embracing it with everything we have without knowing all the facts. But courage is really that moment in time which we We take what information we have and we implement it to take action, to move forward. And by God, we do that every day of our lives. The small, little courageous steps that create who you are, what you believe, and what you want to get accomplished. So that becomes the important thing, because ultimately, the one business that we're all in, if you think about it, is really the hope business. Because no man is an island. And we didn't get to where we are today by ourselves. If you think about it, we got here because of someone, some person. We got here because of a teacher. We got here because of a mentor. We got here because of a parent. We got here because of a coach. We got here because someone took an interest in us, maybe kicked us in the rear end when we needed it, pulled us by the ear, gave us advice, showed us the way. But somebody that had an impact in our lives. And all our lives, think about it, are built on that one little simple kernel of belief that you can achieve something in your life. And mine, if I may share with you, started with the greatest football game I ever played in. I was 9 years old, okay? I'm playing Dickie Weisgerber, my next door neighbor. Being born and raised in a small Midwestern town, Appleton, Wisconsin. For us cheeseheads, I mean, football was a big part of our lives, and Dick and I had an extensive schedule. We had home and away games. And the first game of that season was an away game for me, so of course I had to go across the street, pick up Dickie, and play in his side lawn. But what a game. What a game. I scored 51 touchdowns that afternoon. More importantly, I shut them out. I mean, the sucker didn't score. That's 357 to nothing. Oh my God. It was a game of skill, will. Now, just because of the fact that Dickie was 5, I shouldn't take anything away from my personal achievement. If you didn't know Dickie was a tough 5. He was a big kid for his age at that time. And the amazing thing is that Dickie never gave up. He was always in the neighborhood and pick up games, show up and be a part of it. And then as we morphed, into grade school, into junior high, and then into high school and college thereafter, there was always a catalyst that would pull individuals together and mold them into a team. And in high school, we had a great coach by the name of Torchy Clark, brand new Catholic high school that was built during that period of time. And in that period, in those 4 years, we never lost a football game. We were the state champions, the #1 team ranked in the state of Wisconsin. But because of that success of individuals coming together as a team, you get recognized for your contribution to that success. Not that you did it yourself, but you were a part of that team. And because of that, I get a chance to continue my education. And I get a scholarship offer to go to the University of Notre Dame. And because of a catalyst, a leader, a coach by the name of Ara Parsegian, by my junior year, we win a national championship. And I become captain of the team my senior year. But because of that success of those individuals and that team coming together, you get recognized for your contribution. And because of that, I get drafted into the National Football League by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, just to put things in the right perspective, I know time has changed. I was not their first choice. I did not make their top 10 list. I was the 417th person picked in the draft that year. I was a 16th round draft choice. They don't have those anymore. But you have to understand, from my point of view, there were 17 rounds. Hey, at least I was not the last guy picked. I might have a chance to be able to make this team. And people would say, well, how did you make the team back then? Well, do you remember who played for the Steelers in the 60s? That's how come I made the team, because nobody remembers who played for them during that period of time. I got a chance to play 10 of 14 games, and I was sitting in front of my locker at Old Pitt Stadium. And the locker room there was cramped and pungent and laid out like every locker room before, since lockers up against the wall, players around the perimeter. In the middle was a laundry basket with a couple tables, and on one of the tables is where all the fan mail would be deposited for the players. It was a place I'd never visited from that first day of training camp up through the 10th game of that season. Not when you're the 417th person picked in the draft. Playing on a losing team, I mean, nobody knows you exist. My mother, God rest her soul, never even sent me a letter. When all of a sudden, one of the equipment men there hollered, "Hey, Bleier, there's a letter over here for you." Well, I stood up, maybe a little too quickly. You ever do that? Got a little white-headed. Sauntered over the table thinking to myself, now, who's writing me a letter? Maybe it's a Notre Dame fan that wants an autograph from a former captain. I got to the table, perused through the mail, and there it was, my first piece of fan mail. I picked it up very tenderly, opened it up, slipped out the paper inside, unfolded it. It was from my uncle. My Uncle Sam. He said, "Greetings. We'd like to inform you that you've been inducted into the armed services of your country." Now, I have to tell you this in all honesty. That was the worst fan letter I've ever received in my life. Everybody else who got their draft notification back in 1968, there was no lottery back then. I was not necessarily embracing my soon-to-be current change in life. And I quickly calculated my options. Why? Because during that period of time in history, for those who have gone through the Vietnam, there was a lot of unrest about that war that was taking place and not fighting over there and what reasons were involved. And so people had options that they were implementing. You could leave the country. Some people were doing that at that moment in time. Yeah, but not me. You could apply as a conscientious objector to that war in Vietnam. But coming from Appleton, Wisconsin, really, in all honesty, what was I going to object about? You could enlist, but that was a 4-year commitment. Being drafted was only 2 years. You could join the reserve of the National Guard at that time. This was 1968, the height of the war. All those spots were filled. I was quickly running out of options. Now, just to put things into perspective, we had a game against the Cleveland Browns before I had to report. And I thought to myself, hey, you might have another option. What if you got hurt in that game? You might not have to report. So let me tell you this, in that game against Cleveland, I threw my body into every Browns jersey I could find. Stupid Browns, they couldn't even hurt me when I wanted them to. But when I knew I was going to go, there was a certain relief. I mean, part of me wanted to live up to my responsibility. I mean, what would I tell my kids if they ever said, "Hey, Dad, what did you do during the war?" What if I truly disappointed Mom or Dad? I remember the first letter I wrote home. "Dear Mom and Dad, Vietnam's really not as bad as I thought it would be. We're on the ocean side. Sometimes we're allowed in it. Temperature's 80 degrees, the heat's 100 degrees, well, it really makes it feel cool." And then I thought to myself, how many kids like me wrote that same kind of letter home the first day they were in country? Yeah, it's a tropical paradise. So I didn't get to Vietnam until May of '69, and I wrote home often. I'm going to tell you just the way it is, I write to my folks. So if you want something to worry about, then I will give you something to worry about. Then I wrote, ha, ha, ha. I guess that was my policy back then. There was no texts, tweets, posts. No, I could be dead before they got my letter. So I wrote to them about the elephant grass. It was tall and sharp, but the leeches that were short and sharp. But the wait a minute vines. You'd be on patrol if your unit was 100+ degree temperature so hot it'd make your nosebleed, the temperature that would deconstruct this body from over 200 pounds to 160 pounds. And you come across these vines that thorns on them, like little fish hooks, and all of a sudden you get caught. And the more you try to get yourself untangled, just the more you got yourself tangled, and the only thing you could holler was, "Wait a minute," until you get yourself untangled. I wrote to them about the Viet Cong, who were farmers by day and killers by night, about my luxurious air mattress and the poncho liner I used as a cover. How the mud turned into rivers when it rained, and the only time you got a chance to bathe, well, was when it did rain. Now, I don't think that I wrote to them about the snakes or the occasional Bengal tigers. I really didn't want them to worry. You know, I could handle combat, I thought to myself, and you know why? Because I had the Catholic nuns growing up. What was combat like? Well, it was like 16 years of Catholic education. It was like that. You see, I thought if I could be flip about it, I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to think about how ridiculously unfunny it really was. And so when the bullet entered my thigh, and I was laying on the ground and blood was pouring in my pants, I did think about the nuns, one in particular, my 6th grade teacher. And all the stories that she told us about those soldiers in Korea in World War II, that when the blood started to flow, they started making deals. That's how some of them became priests. And I thought to myself, that's where I'm starting my bit. You get me out of here and I'll become well, I wasn't going to become a priest, okay, fine. What else you got? Well, in 4 days, I was going to go to leadership school where I had the chance to test out of combat. But this is not August 24th, this is August 20th. And bleeding was the best you could hope for because guys were dying, not making deals. Died. So with a bullet in my thigh and panic in my chest, I still had my weapon. An M79 grenade launcher. And let me tell you this, I was launching grenades not knowing where they're landing. I put my head down for a moment, maybe reconsidering the priesthood, when all of a sudden out of the corner of my eye I saw a grenade come flying through the air. And it hit my commanding officer in the middle of the back, bounced off, rolled between my feet, and before I could get out of the way, it blew up. And shrapnel ripped through my lower feet and legs, and again, we were in another firefight until a sister platoon fought its way down and dragged us out of there. I was 8th in line on a poncho liner. 4 guys were dragging me through the wooded, jungled area until they couldn't drag me any further, all through the night. They said, "Don't worry, we'll send a stretcher back for you." When all of a sudden, out of the darkness, I see these 2 black hands reach down, scoop me up, picks me up, throws me over his shoulder, and starts carrying me to the helicopter. Now the helicopter's a long ways away, and this black soldier would put me down, my blood all over him, pick me up again, catch his breath, and continue on until he got me onto that chopper. And I never saw him again. I didn't know his name, didn't know where he came from. But I can tell you this, I'm here today because of a colorblind soldier back in 1969 who saw not that he was black and I was white, but that blood was blood was blood. He did more for me on that day than if I was his own brother. In some sense, we did become brothers in that brotherhood of war. So I got to an aid station, then went to Da Nang, where I got patched up, and then flew to Tokyo, where I spent 3 weeks in the hospital before I came back to the States, where I spent 9 months in the hospital, went through 3 more operations. But it was during that period of time when I was in that field hospital, right out of the field, and all those questions that we have, why me? Now what? Where am I going to go? I had something, you took it away from me, where's the rest of my future in all of this? Comes flowing through your mind. And across from me was a young soldier. He was a triple amputee. He lost his left arm and both legs. And every day, the aides would come to take him to therapy. And I'd watch him grab that little trapeze that swung over his bed, swing his torso into the wheelchair, and they'd push him out. And he'd stop at every bed in the ward. It wasn't a big ward. He'd stop at my bed. And he'd say, "Hey, how you doing today? You know, you look better today than you did yesterday. Because yesterday, let's be honest, you look like crap." I mean, we got some good docs here, we're gonna take care of you, we'll get you out of here, and I'll see you back in the real world one of these days. And I thought, wow. I mean, if anybody could be embittered with their lot in life, would have to be that young soldier, having to live with those atrocities that took place thousands of miles away. But yet, he chose to make a difference. Yet he chose to have a positive attitude. And I thought, wow, if he could have an attitude like that, what about me? I'm gonna walk someday. And as I said, I got to Tokyo, and after several weeks that I was in the hospital, I finally got enough courage to ask my physician about my injuries and whether or not he thought that I could ever come back and play this silly game of football again. Now, his response to that question was something like this. He said, God, don't worry about it. You're going to have a normal life. You're going to be able to do the things normal people do. Just don't expect to get back in the gridiron. He said, because the fact you just won't have the strength nor the flexibility to do the things that are necessary to be a running back in the NFL. But you see, what he had formulated from his point of view, from his stream of information, correct or not in his diagnosis, was a perception about my ability. But as my authority figure, he just sucked that hope right out. 2 days later, unbeknownst to me, I get a postcard in the mail. A simple postcard. It's got 2 lines on it. It says this: Rock, team's not doing well. We need you. Art Rooney, owner of the team. Wow. Somebody needed me. Oh, they didn't need me. But somebody took the time to care. And being the family that they were and they are, I came back. And they bought me a year. Put me on injured reserve. I had another operation. Came back the following year. I made the taxi squad or the developmental squad. So they bought me 2 years. 2 years to heal, 2 years to get stronger, 2 years to come back. And so you do. A little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. Leading ground gainer during the exhibition season. Thank you very much. Good enough to make the team. Never carried the ball thereafter, that's okay. Played special teams better than the year before. Came back the following year, a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. Leading ground gainer during the exhibition season. Thank you very much. Got to carry the ball once during that year. Hey, better than the year before. But all of a sudden, the coming year was not looking up for me. I mean, to make the team again, I was going to have to fight with every free agent, rookie, draft choice. And I just didn't think it was fair. Not that life's fair. I thought, well, maybe my life's going in another direction. I mean, I did come back. I did make the team. I got a chance to play, maybe not to the level I thought, but hey, that wasn't part of the deal in the right caddy. And so after the 1973 season, I left the Steelers, find my life's work, and I'm living in Chicago. When I get a call from a teammate of mine who's coming into Chicago, Andy Russell was his name. Big sports dinner taking place, Boys and Girls Club, sponsored by the NFL. Guys are coming from all over the league. He said, why don't you join me? I hadn't seen you since the end of the season. It'd be great to get together again. Well, I'm not going back. I declined very politely. He pushed, I declined some more, and he pushed some more. Then he asked me that one simple question: why? Well, without thinking, I just burst out, I'm not going back, I quit, really. And he said, you can't quit. If you quit, what you have already done is you've already made a decision for that coaching staff. Do you like them well enough to make decisions for them? He said, no, your responsibility, if this is what you want to do, is that you come back and you make them make a decision. You back them in the corner. You give them every reason to either keep you or release you. But you don't cut yourself. I mean, the reality of this life is that we're all expendable. The reality of this life is we all can be cut at any time. But if this is what you want, then you don't cut yourself. And maybe it was just the arm twisting I needed from an older brother I didn't have. But I went back, and everything that I had perceived did take place. I had to fight with every free agent, draft choice, and rookie once again to be able to make the team. Leading ground gainer during the exhibition season. Thank you very much. Now, the reason that I tell you that is that the reason that I'd been the leading ground gainer wasn't because of the fact that I was bigger, better, faster, stronger than all the other running backs. No, it was the simple fact that I played more than anybody else during that period of time. I carried the ball more than anybody else during that period of time. Given those two simple statistics, I better be the leading ground gainer during that period of time, because all they were providing for me was an opportunity to make this team. And they had to keep me. And I was the 5th running back out of 4 at the beginning of the season, back playing special teams. When unbeknownst to us, Franco Harris, our starting fullback, gets hurt. The backup becomes the starter. I become the backup to the backup. Wow, I'd never been there before. So with renewed vigor, that first game, second game, third game, fourth game, right before the half, the backup gets hurt. And I'm inserted in the game as a fullback, along with my running mate, a guy by the name of Preston Pearson. He finished his career with the Dallas Cowboys. But I tell you this only because of the fact that Preston, right before the half, breaks one, 43 yards, down the sidelines, scores, gives us a lead. We go on at halftime, go over assignments, adjustments, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, who's going to start the second half? Maybe those guys that got you the lead in the first half. So Preston and I get to start the second half, and as a team, we win that game. Following week, we get to start again. And as a team, we win that game. The week thereafter, it's a Monday night game, an extra day of healing. Franco now becomes healthy. Damn. That's okay, at least I got a chance to play, show, prove what we could do. And we had a pregame meal. And after our pregame meal, all the running backs get together. We go over last minute assignments, adjustments. The coach gives us the first 3 plays of the game, just in case Bradshaw should forget, so we can remind him of what they are. And he looks around the table and he said, Franco, you and Rock will start tonight. And majority have to understand, I was quite confused. I didn't know how we both could play the same position at the same time. When it dawned on me, I was going to play the fullback position as I had been playing. I was going to play the other running back position. Nobody told me that. I wish they would have. I'd been better prepared. But we get to start that game, and as a team, we win that game. So we get to start the following week. And as a team, we win that game. And we start the remaining part of the season, Bradshaw, Franco, and myself. My God, we win the division. We go to the playoffs, and we win the playoffs. And we go to the Super Bowl, and we win the Super Bowl. And we play 6 more years together, and we win 3 more Super Bowls. And in 1976, Franco and I became the second set of running backs in the history of the NFL, each to gain 1,000 yards rushing in the same year. And after 12 seasons, I retired. Now, I tell you that whole story in context only because of the fact that no matter how determined we may be, how passionate we are for what we do, there are times in our lives, and let's be honest, that we want to quit. There are times in our lives when the grass looks green to the side. There are times in our lives when we question what we're doing and why we're doing it, how come we're doing all this homework, and sometimes you just want to quit, move on, and give up. I suppose the whole moral of the story is that if I would have quit, I'd never had the opportunity to play those 12 years, play in those Super Bowls, or have all those memories. But the reason I got a chance to play wasn't because of my size and speed, obviously, 2 things I do not possess, but ultimately because of one talent. And you have to understand this, that no matter who you are, or where you came from, that each and every one of us has a talent, unique unto itself. And it's our responsibility to be able to develop and define what that talent is that we bring to our families, to our neighborhoods, to our teams, to society. Prior to that game all those many years ago, Chuck Noll came up to our backfield coach and said, listen, you have a weakness in your backfield. Who is your best blocker? He said, Bleier. He said, then start him. One talent. And all of a sudden that flying line of one that connected my life came full circle. Much like the flying line of one that connects each and every one of our lives to where we are at this moment in time. If it wasn't for that one talent, well, I might not have had that opportunity. Then it wasn't for that one injury, we might not have had a chance to play. Or if it wasn't for Preston's one touchdown, we may never have played that second half. Or if it wasn't for one triple amputee, one soldier, one terrific game against Dickie Weisberger, it may never have happened at all. And that, think about it, is the power that we have. The power to make a difference, the power to influence, the power to change. Because as William Jennings Bryan said, destiny is not a matter of chance. It's a matter of choice. It's not a thing to be waited for, but it's a thing to be achieved. And each and every one of our destinies lies right here in our own hands. We can become what we want to become. So in closing, I'd like to leave you with a few words that have been with me for many, many years, and they go like this. If you think you are beaten, you are. If you think you cannot, you don't. If you like to win, think you can't, it's almost a cinch you won't. Life's battles won't always go to the stronger or faster man, but sooner or later, the one who wins is the one who thinks he can. And you're all winners. You're here. God bless.